Hello, my name is Panos Redzelas, and I'm an associate professor of social psychology and part of the Embrace Higher Education project. And today I have the pleasure and the honor to be together with Professor Geraldine Lee-Trewick and Dr. Olga Fotakopoulou to discuss about students' well-being experiences, students' mental health and well-being experiences in higher education. The scope of our video is to provide, let's say, an informal slash formal reflection of our experiences as members of staff, as teachers, as academics, as people who are teaching students on a daily basis. So without further ado, would you like to introduce yourself briefly and then move to the questions? Just really briefly, who you are. Would you like to? Yeah, Geraldine, would you like to start first?
Thank you, Panos. Yes, hello. I'm Professor Geraldine Lee-Trewick. I am Professor of Knowledge Exchange and Social Justice at Birmingham City University. And I've worked in higher education for about 28 years, full time, and worked across a range of different types of contexts, new universities and old universities, and also worked across Europe in different environments with higher education institutions. So that's my background. I'm a sociologist, really, but I've kind of escaped into more generic kind of social sciences more recently in my career.
Brilliant. Thank you, Geraldine. And Olga?
Hello, thank you, Panos, for your invitation. I'm a senior lecturer in developmental psychology, so I'm a psychologist originally, and have been working in higher education for more than 15 years, and in different capacities as a researcher in European projects, as a counselor, and as a lecturer as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Olga. And I am, as I said earlier, I'm Panos Redzelas. I'm an associate professor of social psychology. I describe myself as a quantitative experimental social psychologist. I've been working in higher education for 15 years in different capacities and contexts. And I want to believe that I have great experience teaching undergraduate, postgraduate, and PhD students. So today we'll try to reflect from our experiences on students' well-being and mental health, which is a very important topic for contemporary higher education. So my first question is for both of you is, could you please provide some examples of what you believe are the main factors that play a role in students' mental health and well-being in contemporary higher education? Geraldine, would you like to start with you?
I think the contemporary landscape for students at the moment is very tough. I think that would be something that most academics and support staff and staff from across the universities in different capacities would all agree with. Students face particular difficulties in terms of things like debt and issues to do with relationships, issues to do with learning and study. So there's lots of stuff that you can see as kind of generic issues that probably we would recognise from even when we were students as impacting upon the process. But there's also obviously contemporary issues that have come up that are particularly problematic in relation to things like COVID-19 and the experience of particular levels of debt and poverty that students experience today that probably weren't around back in the days when we were studying, wasn't quite as bad. I also think things like substance misuse and drug and alcohol use can also impose other problems, and even issues like students having to take up extra work can make a difference. So there's a wide range of things, I think, and I'm sure that Olga, with her experience of working with students in psychology, will have seen many of these kind of issues across her time.
Indeed, Geraldine. But I would like to start also with this general feeling that the growing body of knowledge and the hectic pace of technology have an impact on students' academic workload and academic stress. And I think that they are increasing, and the increase in workload and stress affect, of course, the undergraduate students' mental health and postgraduates. So I think that it is essential to understand the factors of stress level in their life, and especially the academic workload, which is frequently misunderstood. So in order to graduate, we know that the student needs to take up a full load of rigorous classes, and the relationships, I think, of workload and health have been investigated, and they offer a lot of evidence about how they perceive their academic life. In addition, of course, to all the other challenges, such as their debt and also their perceived difficulties of finding a job afterwards.
Hmm. No, no. Thank you both. I mean, I agree with your reflections, and what you both said are very similar things that I observe in my I observe with dealing with students as well. If there is something that I can add, which is actually related with debt, student debt, is that the effect of privatization of higher education upon students. Um, it feels students that they are more pressure to find a career. It seems that students, or some students to be more exact, perceive higher education not as a path to knowledge, let's say, but more like a career choice, and they waiting an investment. They perceive higher education as an investment. And to my experience as a personal tutor, as an academic, it seems that all those factors have a dire effect, let's say, on students' well-being. Actually, your answers fit really well with my next question, which is about if you have noticed a change to the factors playing a positive and a negative role in students' mental health and well-being. Have you noticed that there are different factors nowadays that they play a positive or a negative role on students' well-being than what it used to be in the past?
Yeah, and I think that Panos, you've actually underlined something that's very important there in relation to the way universities and higher education institutions generally, the way they're operating today. And I think this is very true, of course, in the UK, but also across many other countries of Europe, and certainly we see this in the US as well, and other countries. Is the impact of, as you say, the neoliberal university system, and the way that students now sort of in alignment with that kind of neoliberal approach, sort of see going to university as something where we need to go in and achieve at any cost. And I think they feel that commodification themselves as they're being processed through it. And they certainly, as Olga has noted, they understand that at the end of it, they're trying to get a job during very difficult times. And I think for many students, the big difference for many students is that, absolute terror of not being able to get a job, of, not having the employability skills. And so learning becomes a very different context to even 10 years ago. The way students see it, I think it's really changed, and that can lead to stress and anxiety and depression, and people having panic attacks and being unable to sort of cope in all kinds of ways. So I think that the time as it's moved on, during my career in academia, I've seen students becoming actually more stressed than they were than in the past, and more aware of the stressors pressing upon them that push them sort of towards this end point of trying to go out into the workforce when they're really worried about what will be out there for them.
Well, thank you very much, Geraldine. Olga?
Yes, Panos and Geraldine, I would like to refer a bit more to the current situation due to coronavirus. So at the moment, with no concrete plans in place as it stands, I think that students are increasingly worried and subsequently susceptible to mental health issues and an overall, of course, sense of uncertainty surrounding their future, even surrounding their studies. They cannot predict how they will be taught in the next months, and they only make speculations, about their future. And what is interesting, whilst daily workloads and exam pressure have been lifted now, which should have a positive impact on their well-being and mental health, I think students everywhere, not only in UK, are facing a whole new wave of stressors and stress-inducing factors. I was reading that at the moment we have 2 million students in higher education in the UK, and 23% of them are international students, and I would like to make a reference to them, most of whom were unable to return to their home last year after March for a long period of time due to travel restrictions that were put in place. And students living on campus have become anxious, not only about their state, of their own personal health, but also that of their family members who they were unable to visit and care for. In many meetings with my personal tutees, that was a constant worry. I'm worrying about my family, I'm away, and I cannot travel to see them. And this year, I think it has changed in some ways the scenery, as students, and especially international students, were unable to come to UK, so they stayed away from their campus, they stayed away from their classes, and could only attend virtually their lessons, their lectures, their seminars. So definitely, I think international students have been affected, and of course, our home students who were concerned about returning home and potentially, of course, putting their loved ones at risk. That was a constant worry, especially before Christmas.
No, sorry, did you want to say something, Geraldine?
I
Sorry.
wanted to say something because definitely
Yeah.
we know that universities at the moment have had, of course, to increase the scale of remote learning and teaching. At the moment, we are solely online. But we are in our university, at least, especially concerned about the issue of digital poverty. We offer everything online at the moment, but our students don't always have the right technology and access as well to technology and to an environment which is suited to this way of learning. And I was reading a research by the Office for Students, which suggested that, of course, this was not always the case. Students were digitally deprived and didn't have access to a laptop and an internet connection during their online classes. So I think Panos and Geraldine, these are additional factors which have an impact on their mental health and well-being. And I was reading recently about a new type of loneliness, the isolation-induced loneliness, which was an issue anyway before lockdown. As Geraldine mentioned, students are concerned about their relationships and having friends. But I think now, with the social distancing measures that are in place, it's likely that this feeling of loneliness will be really heightened.
Mm.
And
No.
yes, affecting, of course, their level of engagement with their studies, and at the same time affecting their well-being.
Thank you for your answers and your contributions. If there's something I would like to reflect from my own experience, is some positive, let's say, factors towards students' mental health and well-being. I'll have to say that universities, at least in the UK, but on a certain extent to the whole continent, to the whole Europe, are more aware of student well-being and mental health, and they're trying to do more stuff to facilitate students' well-being and mental health. For example, when I was a student back in the late 90s, student well-being and mental health was not very. I was not feeling was very well understood by institutions back then. Maybe there was only one counselor or one psychologist, and that's it. Where nowadays, student well-being is it's something that is actively being discussed in staff meetings. Is something that actively universities have on the agenda of helping students. I mean, it's a different question if what universities are doing is enough, but student well-being and especially student mental health is on the radar. So, are there any positive, let's say, examples of that you can see of how universities are dealing with student well-being and mental health from your experience?
Well, I mean, I speak from the perspective of having been a head of department at a couple of institutions, and I know, in that role, how much of my time was taken up with actually looking at cases and situations where students needed help of various types. And I think different layers of staff now, there are systems that offer help to students. So you've got things like personal tutors and year tutors and roles like that staff have, where they have a pastoral care role for students. But you've also got layers like heads of department and heads of school and different layers that you would find named differently, but across Europe, where those members of staff at high levels will intervene to sort of help in relation to supporting students, making sure they get the right help, signposting them to the right forms of care and support that they might need. So I think you're right, Panos, that there's a much greater awareness, and certainly, I mean, in terms of the metrics or the measurements that universities are supposed to engage in many countries, checking student satisfaction, looking at student engagement, you could say that although those metrics are very crude measures, and all the impacts of those measures has been to get more members of staff and different levels of staff thinking about the importance of helping students in all kinds of different ways, and making sure that they're able to engage with their studies, if they are experiencing depression or anxiety, ensuring there's signposting to the right sorts of services. So there's a lot of things going on, and depending how positive you feel about how universities operate, you could say, well, universities are doing it because it's the right thing to do, the moral and correct thing to do, or you could say it's because we now have metrics across different countries of Europe that mean that we need to make sure we really do take care of students. My view is, whatever the reasoning is, it's a real positive that that people are doing this. And I tend towards the view that people generally want to do the best for their students, that it's not just they're doing it for the metrics, they're doing it because they genuinely, you know, care about how students are doing. And there's that greater awareness of mental health and illness overall that means that staff aren't afraid so much of these kind of areas and can engage with them better.
Thank you, Geraldine. Olga?
Yeah.
Yes, I do agree with you and Geraldine that we have a deeper understanding, first of all, of the issues that impact on students' mental health and people's mental health in general, because there is an interest as well in staff's mental health, which definitely is linked to students' well-being as well. And I can think of many different services that are provided now to our students, many different also programs. And we have a very good example in our school and in our department of psychology, the mental health first aid program, which is an internationally recognized training course, which is designed to teach you how to spot the signs and symptoms of mental health conditions. Yes, and provide help on a first aid basis. So we have more and more members of staff and also students who attend this training, and they are very much interested in investing in this new knowledge, you know, and these newly developed skills, and provide help to each other. We have students who are mentors and they look after their colleagues' well-being. And I think that we are in a process of understanding more and more and realizing more and more the importance of our mental health and well-being. And I think that this is the right direction really for the future.
Thank you very much for your comments, which actually lead me really well to my next question. But before I go to my next question, which is the final also as well, just to reflect a tiny bit of what you said. I mean, again, reflecting from my own experience, I can only say that universities nowadays are much more aware of students' well-being and mental health. They not only use much more interventions like the ones that Olga mentioned about how to help students, but also throughout the academic process, throughout teaching and learning, student well-being, it's something that we really try to care for. For example, as a personal, I will reflect on my role as a personal tutor when I started working in academia. In the beginning of my career, a personal tutor was more about providing academic advice and writing a reference. Okay, whereas nowadays is, as Geraldine really nicely said, it's about pastoral care, and not only pastoral care, it's about safeguarding the well-being of your students, and functioning as the contact point. Okay, when a student is facing a difficulty. So I can say and I can see that the personal tuition system, at least in the UK, has changed significantly, and it has moved from being only academic to being pastoral, but at the same time, not just pastoral, but a safeguard mechanism, among others that they do exist, for students' well-being and students' mental health. So yes, so for my final question, what do you believe higher education institutions and universities can do in the future to foster a more holistic approach to students' well-being and mental health? Geraldine, would you like to start first?
Yeah, I just wanted to link into something that Olga said in the last thing that I think is just important, that does link into thinking about the future and the importance of
Yeah.
one of the things that COVID has shown us, and that was known before but it's basically ignored, is the issue of the way that mental health issues do not affect the student body equally and in the same ways. There are divisions within the student body that mean that certain students from certain backgrounds carry a heavier burden in relation to mental health. So, in particular, I'm thinking around our understanding of the way that BAME students are experiencing mental health issues, particularly around COVID and the stresses and extra stress because of the way that those communities have been affected by the disease. But the same is true generally when we think about mental health in the student body as a whole. I think there needs to be a much more nuanced approach to thinking about how different subsets of students experience these things. Now that is beginning to happen a little bit, and this does connect to what you're asking there, Panos, about holistic care. More and more we've got universities setting up committees to actually look at different subsets of students, whether that be socioeconomic differences, whether it be cultural differences and heritage and background issues and differences, that there's a much greater understanding that we need to see students across the whole university as possibly needing particular types of support, and providing that for particular and specific groups. And I feel that's really coming out now, that recognition that certain groups of students might need more than others. In terms of the holism across the university, as I say, that can be about committee structures that draw from, say, right from academics, but also registry. It might be library services. It might be well-being services of different types. They're called all kinds of stuff, of course, across Europe. And the titles of these subsections of universities, but universities more and more are bringing together different players from across universities to be strategic about how mental health can be improved in the student body. And I think that working across is really important, because let's face it, if a student is experiencing mental health problems, they may also be having problems bringing their library books back. They may also be having problems not just in the academic side of meeting deadlines and stuff, but they may be having problems with fee payments and making sure they're happening on time, difficulties that need to be ironed out by registry or whatever. So to me, that working together is something that really makes a difference in dealing with mental health in a really holistic fashion across universities. And that is something that's quite new. I'd say in the last 5 years, I don't think you used to see it before that, but it's really beginning to happen now. And that really is making a positive impact.
Thank you very much, Geraldine, for your comprehensive answer. And Olga?
Yes, I could only add, and I'm in full agreement with Geraldine's last point about understanding the different groups and the individual needs as well of students. And I would like to add that I think we need to pay attention to their sense of community. And this is the time that we need to increase their sense of community, that they are all part of the university, they all contribute to what is university. They could all contribute to their studies, how the different modules are being taught and how they could be better engaged with whatever happens in the university. And I think we need to invest now in their sense of belonging, that they are part of this community, and this can help them to shape not only their thinking processes, but also it can shape their whole experience and their future. We need to make sure that our students feel supported at this time, and in relation to their future employment, which is a major issue. I know that from all my conversations with our year 3 students, that they really worry about their future and their employment. And also our international students have the same worry because they have to find a job straight after the end of their studies within 4 months in order to stay in the UK if they wish to. I believe that we could now help them develop their soft skills, which include those, in the creative, adaptability, and persuasion and communication realm. And this will help them, I think, to survive in the post-COVID world.
Geraldine, have you raised your hand? Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to, actually, before you come in there, Panos, just to say that I think that and we see this happening, but there's this absolute imperative for strategic leadership at higher levels of universities, because there is that is being worked on now. There is much greater will at those higher levels to think about mental health issues and those kind of things. But when we think about holism, it's not just people on the ground who are face to face with students who need to be working on this. It does need that leadership from above, and that leadership from organizations across countries, but also organizations that span countries, to actually lead and to get that strategy running through, cascading through entire organizations, higher education organizations, to ensure that there's an alignment of ensuring that mental health is absolutely top of the agenda in all kinds of environments, right from your departmental meetings and what goes on with students face to face, right through to the board level and the governors of universities and the people with the higher level responsibilities. And it's only by working in that way, in a strategic way together, that you can actually achieve good outcomes for students. And so that's all I just wanted to bring in, that strategic level as well.
No. Thank you for your contribution, Olga, and thank you for your comment, Geraldine. It's very helpful. And actually, you provide a perspective that maybe we have forgotten in our discussion. That it's not only about the ground level support that we provide to the students, about the strategy and strategic thinking that universities or the whole sector throughout Europe needs to focus on. I would like to thank you for your time today. I believe that we had a very fruitful discussion where we touched upon some very important issues that they have to do about universities and student mental health. If there is a take-home message that I would like to summarize our discussion with, it would be like mental health, student mental health and well-being is an important issue. We know that. We know that in our everyday, professional lives. It has completely changed the way that universities perceive and work around student well-being and mental health. And in the future, universities across the continent should take a more holistic approach, embedded in all levels of university, from top management all the way to the people who are delivering the courses. Is there like a final remark that you like to make, or something you would like to say before we end up our discussion today?
I'd just like to say that, you know, universities need to really see themselves as holistic and kind of one organism that's all kind of working together. And effectively, you know, you as Olga said earlier, you can't have good mental health for any particular group without thinking about the mental health of all, whether that be, you know, lecturers, students, you know, middle management, senior management, people working in different sectors of the university and support side of things, people working in different areas. So I would like universities to sort of pick up that challenge to really try and align their mental health policies and strategies so that all members of universities are able to have good mental health, because
Exactly.
if you've got to have good mental health for all, not just for a particular group within it, that doesn't make sense, and it wouldn't make sense, and it wouldn't be forward thinking for universities to do anything else, really.
Thank you, Geraldine. I totally agree with your final remark. Universities need to take care not only of the students, of the whole academic community, which involves staff as well, and also the communities that they're hosting the universities. Olga?
Yes, I totally agree with your final remarks, your concluding remarks, and I believe that this is the time to bring change. If you fully understand what is the scope, then you are able to make meaningful changes in people's lives, students, staff, the community that you mentioned before. So we need to develop initiatives, projects, you know, in order to accomplish this.
Brilliant. I would like to thank you once again for your time. I know it's a very busy period this time in the academic calendar. Thank you for taking this time to record this video, which hopefully people will find useful. Thank you once more, and speak to you later. Okay, bye for now.
Thank you. Thank you.